Money pressure can feel like a shadow that follows you into every room. You work, you worry, you try to do the right thing. And still, the numbers can feel louder than your prayers. In those moments, it is easy to mistake fear for wisdom. It is also easy to call survival stewardship when it is really panic. Proverbs does not speak like a motivational poster. It speaks like an elder who has watched people build, lose, rebuild, and lose again. It does not flatter the listener. It warns. It invites. It lays down patterns that tend to shape a life over time, not only in a bank account, but in the heart that touches the bank account. The blessing of the Lord brings wealth without painful toil for it, sits beside sharp cautions about haste, pride, and crooked gain. Proverbs 10:22 warns and comforts at the same time. This is for education and spiritual reflection, not financial advice. What Proverbs offers is not a guarantee. It is a kind of training. It is a way to see money as something that can be handled with reverence, not worshipped, not feared, not used to prove anything. When wisdom talks about wealth, it usually talks about work, restraint, planning, honesty, and generosity in the same breath. It refuses to split spiritual from practical because Scripture does not live that way. Proverbs 3:9 ties worship to increase, not as a formula, but as a posture. So we start at the first pressure point, the place where most people either drift or decide. The daily choice to show up, to keep faith with small responsibilities, and to keep going when nobody is clapping. Diligent work builds wealth. You can feel it when your effort starts to slip, not in one dramatic moment, but in small permissions. One skipped task, one half-done job, one excuse that sounds reasonable. And later, when money feels tight, it is tempting to blame the world first, yourself second, and God last. Proverbs starts closer to the ground. It watches what your hands do when no one is watching. Proverbs 10:4 is blunt. Lazy hands make for poverty, but diligent hands bring wealth. It is not poetry for a greeting card. It is a warning about drift. In the ancient world, a slack hand was not just a mood. It was a threat to survival. Work was tied to harvest, and harvest was tied to winter. Proverbs 10:5 adds the picture. Gathering in summer is prudent. Sleeping in harvest brings shame. That is a season-based lesson. Opportunity passes. Responsibility waits. Then Proverbs widens the lens. Diligence is not only energy, it is faithfulness. It is the decision to do honest work without needing constant praise. Proverbs 12:11 says, "The one who works his land has plenty, but chasing fantasies lacks sense." That contrast matters. One life is built with steady effort. The other is built on wishful thinking that often feels exciting at first. Today, diligence can get twisted. Some people turn it into identity and grind until they burn out, then call exhaustion obedience. Others treat diligence like a switch they will flip later, after comfort arrives. Two modern examples show up a lot: fear-driven overtime to avoid facing a budget, and shortcut hunting through flashy side hustles that ignore skill and service. The deeper grounding is this: God cares about faithfulness, not hype. For a beginner, take one small step. Choose one task you keep daily and finish it clean. Then choose one skill you build slowly, without rushing the fruit. Let diligence be quiet worship. Gather little by little. Most people do not ruin their finances in one move. They leak. A snack here, a delivery fee there, a small "I deserve this" that becomes a lifestyle. Then one day you look back and the story feels confusing. You did not mean to waste, you just did not notice the drip. Proverbs names that drip. Proverbs 13:11 sets a pattern. Wealth gained quickly dwindles, but the one who gathers little by little increases it. That is not a curse on opportunity. It is a warning about speed without roots. Quick money can come with quick habits. Quick spending, quick pride, quick risk, quick excuses. Little by little is slower, but it is steadier. And steady often trains the soul, not just the wallet. This principle fits Proverbs' wider tone about patience and process. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit as surely as haste leads to poverty." Notice the focus. Diligence and planning are paired. Haste and loss are paired. It is not saying every fast gain is evil. It is saying haste is a bad master. When speed becomes the driver, wisdom gets pushed to the back seat. There is also a moral edge to the proverb. Some translations highlight dishonest wealth or wealth obtained by fraud shrinking away. That reminds the listener that the Bible is not neutral about how money is made. In Scripture, Increase is not only about math, it is about integrity. You can gather little with clean hands and a clear conscience. That matters. Modern misuse shows up two ways. Some people mock small steps as if they are pointless, so they never start saving at all. Others obsess over tiny cuts but ignore big decisions like debt, lifestyle, or job growth. Then they live anxious and tight-fisted. Two examples: panic canceling every joy purchase to feel in control, and chasing sudden profits through risky bets to feel ahead. The heart posture here is humility. Start with 2 beginner steps. Track 1 week of spending honestly and set a small, repeatable amount aside before you spend the rest. Let little by little become a way of life. Store up in times of plenty. When life finally feels stable, a new temptation appears. Forgetfulness. You start to believe the calm season is normal. You loosen your grip on wisdom. You relax the disciplines that carried you through the lean months. Proverbs does not shame rest, but it does warn against assuming plenty will always be present. Proverbs 6:6-8 points to the ant. It has no commander, yet it stores provisions in summer and gathers food at harvest. That is not saying humans are insects. It is saying creation teaches patterns. Summer is not for sleep. Summer is for preparation. In Israel's world, a missed harvest was not inconvenient. It was dangerous. The proverb trains you to treat abundance as a responsibility, not a signal to drift. This connects with another proverb that sounds almost like an inventory report. Proverbs 21:20 says, "Precious treasure and oil are in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man devours all he has." Oil and stored food were security. They were planning. They were the ability to endure hard seasons without panic. Notice the contrast. The wise keep something back. The foolish swallow it all. Biblically, storing is not hoarding. Hoarding is driven by fear and mistrust. Storing is driven by stewardship. You see this pattern across Scripture, including the idea of preparing during years of plenty for years of need. Proverbs frames it as wisdom, not as anxiety. It is a way to respect the future without worshiping it. Modern distortion also splits in two. Some people store up because they are scared of everyone, including God, so they never give. Others refuse to store at all because God will provide. But their version of faith ignores Proverbs' call to prepare. 2 examples: spending bonuses as fast as they arrive because you feel owed, and overstocking savings while neglecting family needs out of control. A grounded step can be simple. When you have extra, decide ahead of time where it goes. A buffer, debt reduction, and planned generosity. Write it down, then do it quietly. Wisdom stores in summer. Leave a comment with the hardest plenty season temptation for you to manage. Don't consume everything you earn. There is a version of adulthood that looks responsible, but it is just polished consumption. Bills paid, screens upgraded, food upgraded, lifestyle upgraded, and beneath it, no margin, no room to breathe. You may not be reckless, but you are still trapped by what you spend. Proverbs has words for that trap. Proverbs 21:20 gives the image again: treasure and oil in the wise person's house, but the foolish person swallows it up. Swallowing is vivid. It is not thoughtful spending. It is reactive. It is driven by appetite. In the ancient home, oil was daily life. It was cooking, light, and healing. If you devoured everything, tomorrow became a crisis. Proverbs treats margin as wisdom, not luxury. Proverbs 13:11 supports the same idea from another angle. When you gather little by little, you do not treat every paycheck like a party. You treat it like seed. You respect the difference between receiving and keeping. You do not need to hate money to handle it wisely. You just need to stop letting desire make the decisions. Proverbs also warns about the inner engine behind consumption. When people chase status, they buy what they cannot maintain. When people chase comfort, they spend to numb stress. Wisdom asks a different question. What is this purchase training me to love? Scripture does not forbid enjoying God's gifts. It warns against being ruled by appetite. Today, the misuse is everywhere. Some people treat self-care as a blank check, then feel shocked when savings never grows. Others swing to the opposite extreme and refuse to enjoy anything. Then they binge later because deprivation built pressure. 2 examples: impulse online carts after a hard day, and strict no-spend vows that collapse into a weekend splurge. Theological grounding is stewardship. You are not the owner in Proverbs' worldview. You are a manager under God. 2 beginner steps: wait 1 day before non-essential buys, and build one simple margin line in your budget that you do not cross. Small restraint can protect peace. Avoid get-rich-quick schemes, because pressure makes you impatient. When bills stack up, your mind starts scanning for a door that is not really there. You tell yourself you only need one big break, one lucky flip, one fast win. And when the offer sounds confident, it can feel like relief instead of risk. But Proverbs treats haste as a spiritual danger, not just a financial style. Proverbs 28:22 warns that the one who is in a hurry for wealth does not know that poverty is coming on him. The warning is not only about outcomes, it is about vision. Greed narrows the eyes. It makes you miss what is true, what is stable, what is slow, what is honest. In Israel's wisdom tradition, a wise person learns to distrust the inner voice that says, now, faster, more. That voice is rarely neutral. Proverbs 13:11 adds another angle. Wealth gained quickly dwindles, but the one who gathers little by little increases it. In Scripture, speed is not always sin, but speed without skill and character often weakens a person. When a sudden gain arrives, it can also bring sudden pride, sudden spending, and sudden risk. The text pushes the listener back to process. It asks for a life that can carry blessing without being crushed by it. This principle gets misused in modern life in two opposite ways. Some people use it to condemn every new opportunity, so they never learn, never grow, and never take any wise risk. Others ignore it and chase hype because it feels like hope. Two examples are common: jumping into a guaranteed returns pitch because you feel ashamed of being behind, and treating gambling or high-risk bets like a plan because slow progress feels boring. Both run on the same fuel: desperation. The deeper issue is worship. What are you trusting to save you? Proverbs calls you back to wisdom, which is close to the fear of the Lord. For a beginner, take 2 steps. Pause before any money move you cannot explain simply, and ask one trusted, grounded person to review the idea with you. If it cannot survive calm questions, it may not be wisdom. Avoid debt slavery, because debt can feel normal until it starts making decisions for you. You still go to work, you still smile, but in the background, you hear the countdown: payment dates, interest, late fees, and little by little your future begins to feel owned. Proverbs does not pretend that borrowing never happens. It warns you not to treat it lightly. Proverbs 22:7 says, "The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender." That line is blunt because the reality can be blunt. In the ancient world, debt could lead to losing land, losing freedom, even losing family security. The proverb is not romantic. It is realistic. Borrowing creates a power relationship. Even when the lender is polite, the obligation can shape your choices. Proverbs also pairs this with a call to slow, diligent planning. Proverbs 21:5 says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, surely as haste leads to poverty." Debt often grows in haste. You buy first, you plan later. Or you borrow to keep up with a lifestyle, then call it just how things are. Wisdom invites another path. It asks you to count the cost, limit exposure, and build margin. Modern distortion shows up in 2 directions. Some people treat debt like a tool with no spiritual weight, so they borrow for wants, not needs, then wonder why peace disappears. Others treat all debt as identical, so they live in shame and secrecy, hiding balances even from people who could help. Don't co-sign or guarantee loans, because love can get confused with rescue. Someone asks for help and your heart moves before your mind. You picture their stress. You fear being seen as cold. And in one moment you sign your name to a problem you did not create and may not control. Proverbs speaks to that moment with unusual detail. Proverbs 22:26 says, "Do not be one of those who give pledges, who put up security for debts." The image is personal. Your hand, your promise, your future on the line for another person's obligation. Proverbs 22:27 presses it further. If you lack the means to pay, why should your bed be taken from under you? In other words, don't risk your basic stability to cover someone else's risk. Wisdom is not selfish. It is responsible. This connects with earlier warnings in Proverbs about surety and impulsive agreements. The ancient world had public pledges and handshake deals, and the consequences could be severe. The wisdom tradition protects households. It recognizes that one rash promise can pull a whole family into unnecessary hardship. That is not only financial, it is relational. It breeds resentment, suspicion, and quiet anger. Today, people misapply this by becoming hard-hearted, using "I don't co-sign" as an excuse to avoid any real help. Others ignore it and co-sign out of guilt, then feel betrayed when payments are missed. Two modern examples: guaranteeing a friend's loan because you want to be admired, and co-signing for family because you fear conflict, even though your own budget is already strained. Both are forms of fear. The better path is wise generosity. You can help without guaranteeing. For a beginner, try 2 steps. Offer an amount you can truly give without demanding repayment, and help the person build a simple plan instead of taking on their liability. Love does not need to be reckless to be real. Wisdom can still be kind. Leave a comment with one boundary you wish you had set earlier. Seek wise counsel before money moves. Because your own voice can sound like wisdom when it is really emotion. When you are scared, every choice feels urgent. When you are excited, every risk feels small. And when you are ashamed, you stop asking anyone at all. Proverbs treats isolation as a danger zone, not because people are perfect, but because blind spots are real. Proverbs 15:22 says, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors they succeed." Notice what it assumes. You will make plans, you will face decisions, and you will need outside eyes. In the wisdom tradition, counsel is not a vibe. It is tested guidance from people who can tell you the truth. That kind of counsel can slow down a bad decision long enough for you to breathe again. This also fits Proverbs chapter 21:5, where diligent planning leads toward profit, while haste tends toward poverty. Counsel is one of breaks that protects planning. It forces clarity. It makes you explain the move out loud. Sometimes, the moment you say it, you hear the weakness in it. Other times, you discover a better option you missed because stress narrowed your focus. Modern misuse shows up in 2 ways. Some people crowdsource financial decisions from strangers, looking for permission, not wisdom. Others refuse counsel because they think asking questions makes them weak, so they take big risks alone. 2 examples: jumping into an investment or business idea because online hype feels like proof, and making a major purchase in secret because you fear being corrected. Both feed pride or fear. Theological grounding matters here. Proverbs says, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom." Seeking counsel can be an act of humility before God. For a beginner, take 2 steps. Choose one money mentor who is calm and honest, and create a rule that large purchases wait until after one conversation. Wisdom is not loud. It is steady. Honor God first with your increase, because money quietly competes for first place. Not always with loud greed, sometimes with simple fear. You look at what you have and you start ranking needs, ranking risks, ranking people. Then God becomes the leftover line item, if anything remains. Proverbs challenges that order. It asks who you trust before you ask what you can afford. Proverbs chapter 3:9-10 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops," and it paints a picture of barns filled and vats brimming. In its original world, first fruits were the first and best portion brought to God, given before you could see the full harvest. That is the point. It is not a payment for a result. It is worship in uncertainty. It trains a person to say God is first, even when the outcome is not visible yet. This also fits the wider tone of Proverbs about blessing and sorrow. Proverbs 10:22 says, "The blessing of the Lord makes rich, and he adds no sorrow with it." That verse does not turn God into a vending machine. It corrects a common lie, that more money automatically means more life. Scripture keeps separating God's blessing from frantic striving, from crooked gain, from anxious control. Honor is about alignment. It puts the heart back under God's rule. Modern distortion usually goes extreme. Some people preach giving as if it forces God's hand, then wounded believers carry shame when life stays hard. Others refuse to give at all, calling it wisdom when it is really fear of scarcity. 2 examples show up often: giving to feel superior while ignoring justice and mercy, and withholding generosity because I have to protect myself, even when you have enough to share. Both keep money in the center. The deeper theology is stewardship. Everything you hold is already under God's ownership. For beginners, start with 2 steps. Decide a simple, prayerful first portion you give consistently and write it into your budget before discretionary spending. Let it be quiet. Let it be honest. Let it shape you more than it impresses anyone. Leave a comment with what honor God first feels like in real life for you.